Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Amplify Agile Values in Modern Workforces. We're going to give people a few more minutes to join, so while we're waiting, if you want to pop into our attendee chat, like a few of you are already doing, and share where you're joining us from today. I myself am in Denver, Colorado, and we have finally hit real summer, which is amazing. I think we're done with all the cold weather, and I am so happy about that. I know I've already seen like India, Egypt, Germany. We're really hitting a nice global audience today. Really exciting to see. What about you, Brian and Jessica? Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from, I'll go. I'm joining from near Salt Lake City, Utah. In fact, it's kind of topical. I am about 16 miles from where the Agile Manifesto was signed in the mountains of the Snowbird, Utah ski resort. How about you, Jessica?
I am coming to you all from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where it is also finally out of snow season, but right into rain season and construction season, actually.
Yeah, construction season is rough. It feels like it gets longer and longer every year.
Well, looking at this global audience, I think we say good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
I know. I will be the first to admit that I don't think I could join a webinar super early in the morning. So whenever I see someone where their time zone is early in the morning right now, I just give them a round of applause for being here because I don't know if I could do it. But let's go ahead and get started. So hi, everybody. My name is Molly, and I'm a member of the staff here at Scrum Alliance, and I am so excited to welcome you to our webinar today, How to Amplify Agile Values in a Modern Workforce. So if you're a Scrum Alliance member, you may know little about us. If you don't, or you aren't a Scrum Alliance member, we are the first of our kind not-for-profit serving a global community of professionals. We partner with world-class trainers to provide in-demand professional certifications. We were established in 2001, shortly after the signing of the Agile Manifesto. And since 2001, we have issued over 1,876,000 certifications worldwide. And our mission is to advance real-world agility by equipping and inspiring the change maker in everyone. And if you're a Scrum Alliance member, or if you're looking at getting a Scrum Alliance certification, we have some really amazing member benefits that are available to you, whether that's access to our learning journey courses in our resource library, connection to the Scrum Alliance global community through events like this, discounts to our regional Scrum gatherings and our global Scrum gathering. On your dashboard, you'll have access to the Retrium retrospective tool, as well as a suite of comparative agility tools. Some quick logistics about today's webinar. So on your console, you have already found it, but we have the Q&A box on the far left-hand side of your screen. Any questions you have for Brian and Jessica during the presentation, you can pop in there. Or if you have any logistics or text questions, put those in there and I will answer them for you. We also have today's slides as well as the Lucid Sparkboard for today's presentation in that middle section of related content. You have found the attendee chat, so if you want to share thoughts during the webinar, connect with your fellow attendees, throw that in there. And then finally, and some of you have found it as well, we have a reactions tool. So throughout the webinar, if things make you smile, you love it, it sparks something, throw that reaction up there. We love to see it. We love to know what's really standing out to you. Another note, we will be recording today's session and you will get an email to the on-demand recording tomorrow morning as well. And all these resources will still be available to you then. And if you are a Scrum Alliance member, we will also be sending out a link to auto-claim your Scrum Education Unit in that email as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our amazing hosts, Brian Stallings and Jessica Gustulise.
Well, look at all those reactions.
I think they
when you said we're sending a recording.
Fantastic. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Gustulise, and I am an evangelist at Lucid Software. As mentioned, I'm coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. You might hear that in my accent. And my background is as an Agile consultant, facilitator, and coach. I am passionate about true collaboration, high-performing teams, and the humans that make up the organizations that we're all a part of. Pass it over to my colleague and friend, Brian Stallings.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Stallings. I'm Chief Evangelist at Lucid Software, and as I mentioned, I'm coming to you near Salt Lake City, Utah. Like Jessica, we're both credentialed professional coaches and facilitators. And in my professional background, I've been a leader in the Agile product development community since its inception. I did my certified Scrum masterclass in 2003, for example. And since then, I've trained and coached hundreds of individuals and teams. And I've been faculty with the Agile Coaching Institute. I've been a certified Scrum trainer since 2005. And let's see, Jessica, I am passionate about advocating for new ways of working, for collaboration equity, and for the inclusion of neurodivergent individuals in what we do.
Fantastic. Now, before we dive in into our topic today, you might be wondering what Lucid is and why we're here talking about Agile. Lucid offers the leading visual collaboration suite by combining Lucid Spark for visual whiteboarding and Lucid Chart for intelligent diagramming. Teams can collaborate and stay aligned throughout the entire Agile lifecycle using the Lucid suite. We have things like templates, unique facilitator tools, visual activities. Lucid really helps make Agile events more engaging and productive. So we'll see some examples of that as we go through the webinar. Now I'm going to go back because we have a poll. And the poll is, which Agile value does your organization need the most help with? All right. Which Agile value does your organization need the most help with?
You know, while folks quickly respond, I'm looking at this from the perspective of, I don't know, what has it been, 17 years of clients, and wondering which one would I answer I see out there the most.
We had one chat say every one of them. All right, let's see what we've got for the poll. Individual interactions is a big one.
It's that people thing, right? Working with those peoples out there that it looks like we're struggling with. It's so much easier to just put it into a tool, have a process. Yeah. The lightest weight one, Jessica, is getting working software out. So that's great. That means we've made huge strides since when I first entered technology.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Well,
and it's still hard to respond to change.
Always. Change is hard for everybody. All right. This actually, so thank you for sharing all of that. This brings us right to our topic, which is how to amplify Agile values in modern workforces. As Agilists, we all know that the Agile Manifesto outlines 4 values that encourage collaboration and adaptability in software development. We know that all items are of value, but the authors of the Agile Manifesto expressed a preference or a bias to the items on the left. Brian, can you talk to us a little bit about history here? Where did this come from?
Right, as I mentioned when I joined, of course, the manifesto was written in 2001, about 16 miles from where I'm at today. And you and I have both been to that room, the Aspen conference room at the Lodge at Snowbird, and we've seen the plaque there that the Scrum Alliance placed for the anniversary, right, 20-year anniversary. So thinking about the manifesto and what was going on at the time leading up to 2001 and the event that was convened there, this was a time of all of the opposites here on our chart, where they were the strongest in the work that we did. Right? I was working for a large global bank at the time, and it seemed like everything was about processes, tools, documentation, contracts, sign-offs, and sticking to a plan that could never change. Right? And so it was written as a reaction to that time. And my experience since has been that over time, lots of change has been introduced, but even more change in the last 5 years, Jessica, as we now see remote and hybrid workplaces, and with it comes a whole new set of challenges. So if we look at these values here on the slide and think about like what is most challenging today, I think I would agree with the poll, of course, that it's more frequent that individual team members, we're all working in different places, we're working in different time zones, and even our discussions and our decisions are being made asynchronously, right? Like if your team is truly global or that spread out, you might have to collect information over the day because not everybody's working at any one given time. When it comes to something like working software and documentation, I think about like how do we best capture and how do we best share our progress with one another when we're distributed that way, and we can't come in and just all look at the same visual on the projector or step to the same whiteboard. And so since we're so infrequently together in person, how can we stay consistent as a team? Right? How can we, when I think about like the next one, I kind of think about customer collaboration and responding to change together. Our reliance today on tools and on high quality interactions like what we're doing today over this visual mechanism, right? Working with one another, we can use this to work with our customers. We can use this type of interaction face-to-face here to collaborate and create a lot of visibility. So I'm feeling like a lot has shifted and changed. And I'm glad we're talking about it.
Me too. And here's the thing. People, humans, are what make Agile so effective. And people do need certain things in place on their teams in order to be effective. Communication, super important. Transparency, alignment, and flexibility. Lucid really helps your teams to communicate, establish transparency and alignment, and is flexible enough to enable your team in any situation. So it's exciting, like you said, that we're talking about this. All right, let's dive in and start at the very beginning. Let's start at the top. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So the Agile Manifesto calls for collaborative work, where team members come together to communicate directly, make decisions collaboratively, and reduce reliance on processes and tools. We used to meet face-to-face in the same room. Now, because we no longer, and honestly, sometimes even in the past and before, again, we mentioned the global organizations, work in the same place, we actually need tools to support these same interactions. So for example, Brian and I work together every day. And we often set up an all-day Zoom meeting so we can work together as if we were sitting side by side. Or we'll work on separate items, but can easily ask for help or feedback in any moment, mimicking walking over to someone's desk and tapping on their shoulder and saying, hey, real quick, can you check on something? I've got a question, whatever that is. So we actually have that Zoom meeting open all day, and we can pop in and out and say, hey, Brian, do you have a moment? And are able to collaborate without having to toss a meeting event on someone's calendar, which we all know is not always the easiest thing to do.
This is how I know what Jessica's favorite snacks are.
Hummus, how did you know?
Yeah.
That's true. Another interesting thing that may not come to mind is asynchronous collaboration when we're talking about individuals and interactions. Embracing asynchronous collaboration might ensure that you actually are focused on the individual and the needs of the whole human, like the whole human health, rather, excuse me, rather than sort of, we have to be in a certain place at this certain time. Working asynchronously sometimes may allow for people to work in a time zone that works best for their brain to be turned on, or for someone to be able to care for something or someone outside of work while the work continues and still be able to contribute and collaborate. So we might focus on the individual while we're embracing asynchronous collaboration.
It's so different than what you and I learned early in our careers, which was if you were in a different region of the US collaborating, or if you were across the world collaborating, we were talking to people at 10, 11 p.m. their time and expecting them to be 100%.
That's right.
Yeah.
Brian, what are some other additional tips for sustaining the value of individuals and interactions over processes and tools?
So, well, much has changed, as you were talking about, but some things haven't. For example, I like to think about it this way. We still have our Agile team. That's our who, right? We still have the objectives that we're pursuing. We have a vision that we're going after. That's our what and our why. And we still have our sprint cadence. That's our when. All those things are the same. But for me, what's changed since work from home and hybrid work has been the where. We used to have a common where for many teams, or at least parts of a team, where we could have a physical place to be together, to interact, to collaborate. And so since that's gone, I felt an absence of that. I know you as well, Jessica. And so we've spent a lot of time helping people build a virtual where. And we've got one to show you in a minute. It's a common digital environment, right? In one of these shared whiteboards, a place where every team member can come together so that as a team on a daily basis, we can communicate, we can collaborate visually, we share documents. It becomes a really creative space that helps us to connect and that we spend time in every day while we're interacting. And so it could be that we're there together, or it could be that you drop in asynchronously, take a look at what happened, add some comments, mention somebody, get them connected to an idea that you might want to share. And this seems to work amazingly well for teams. And so as we show this to you and talk a bit about it, I challenge you to think about how you might attempt to do with your teams something similar and experiment a bit.
I love this one, Brian. So let's actually go dive in and take a look at a quick example that a team has put this tip into practice.
Team Orange Crush.
Yes, Team Orange Crush. And it looks like they've recently done some grocery shopping, which I love. This team loves to decorate their team space with Orange Crush, obviously, as well as their groceries.
Yep, they've got their favorite team mascot there. And I should mention that this team actually works in this business, in the grocery business, right? They're working on automating and modernizing, super cool actually, the technology that'll be available to us soon for grocery and grocery delivery.
That's right.
They've got a Kanban board, Jessica.
Yeah, they've got a Kanban board. So they're using either Jira or Azure DevOps likely to come together every day and have their daily conversation about what's going on with the work and how to help each other out. And so that luckily is a two-way sync, so they don't really have to go into that back-end system ever. They're just right there working on their work together. They also have things like their vision, like what are we collectively here to do? So they're tied to that day in and day out. And then they've got things like visual activities to help sort of engage the group as they enter into the room.
I see linked documents as well. All right, I know we took another slice of this that we could do a screen grab of to show. Oh yeah, there it is. So I see working agreements and shared calendar.
Yeah, they've got an area for shouting each other out and sharing pictures. It's sort of like we missed that water cooler conversation. What did you do this weekend? All of that stuff. Hey, how was your trip? All of that stuff. How's that puppy of yours? There's a cute dog on there. But allowing them to come together again as individuals, as the human beings doing the work. They've actually got this as part of their day in, day out. We've got our working agreement, we've got our shared calendar. All of that is just available to them regularly, but also focusing on the humans. And of course, my favorite.
Yeah, this is a team that love their pets. And so there's a chance to update, what's going on with your loved ones at home. Awesome. So great examples of how a team can create their virtual where.
Lovely. Okay, let's talk about, value number 2. Working software.
We have to decide who's clicking on the slide. Sorry, Jessica, that was me.
No worries at all. Working software over comprehensive documentation. So we know that there's little value in creating, maintaining, and reviewing long specification documents versus seeing the software actually in operation. And also, I don't know about you all, but I think it's not a whole lot of fun to do. And luckily, this is actually one of the ones that isn't as big of a pain, it seems, as others from our attendee pool, which is exciting. We know that with Agile, the only real measure of progress is running tested features. And what users love about a visual whiteboard like Lucid's is that it automatically creates what we like to call a living blueprint of your ideas. For example, instead of having to document a brainstorm or the actions that come from it, when we do it collectively, it's already right there, visible and ready to use. Another way we can eliminate having to document for document's sake is to sync your tech stack. So all of your information is housed in one place. It's both easier for the team to find what they need, and also reduces the need for information to be in multiple systems. Personally, I hate hunting things down. If it's right there on my fingertips, I'm a much happier human being. Brian, what are some other tips for sustaining the value of working software over comprehensive documentation?
Yeah, you know, Jessica, I really like what you shared there. If I think back to the Agile principles that support this particular value, then for me, they would be things like making it our highest priority to satisfy customers through early and continuous delivery of value, doing this work face-to-face and using, in today's world, other high fidelity communication channels. These are some of the best ways for conveying information, and it's really about how essential it is to maximize the work not done. These are things that come to mind, and when taken together, these values and principles don't mean we're not going to do any documentation. Rather, that the documentation we produce should support us getting the work done, getting the value completed, right? And adding value to the people who are going to consume the document, not just doing document for document's sake. So a lot of Agile teams avoid most types of transitory formal documentation, but they do prioritize and commit to documentation that will persist, documentation for our end users, documentation for the operations team that helps us to meet compliance, for technical design docs that we can refer back to, right? I remember when we used to formalize everything, and then we eventually moved to, well, we can photograph and store some of the basic things. And today, oftentimes we just create them in the software, right? And so at Lucid, we found that it's highly efficient to work in this way. And we use that term living blueprint that you brought up, Jessica, that we can, for example, do a quick ideation, right? Which I think we show on our next slide, where we can bring everybody together and say, what are your ideas? And get them all to contribute those ideas quickly. Now, I don't have to pull these stickies off the whiteboard. I don't have to take and store a photograph. I just keep this in the whiteboard space that I have. It's an infinite canvas, and I can come back to this space if necessary to remember what it was that we discussed, right? Think about how powerful things like this can be if we are creating a living blueprint of our work in a project along the way. That, Jessica, you joined the project. How long does it take me to bring you up to speed by walking you through that history? It's all in one place, right? And so individuals no longer have to keep separate notes. We can note take in the same place, and different understandings that we might have get worked out because of that. This type of collaboration can be visible to everybody, and it really simplifies the work of making sense of the information. We're looking at the same thing together, right? And helps us to establish an understanding. And I think also using a shared whiteboard for this type of creating that living print is a great way to generate documents that require no extra effort, no extra time, and they can allow us to focus on real value. I'm hoping that you'll tell us a little bit about, Jessica, do you remember when we used to have to turn everything into a PowerPoint? Like take the team's document and build a PowerPoint from it, right?
So painstaking, time consuming, and again, not my favorite thing to do.
I know that's coming up in a bit, so looking forward to you telling a bit about that story. But I think our last visual would have us explaining a lot of the capability then could be, how do we want to share this information? And this screenshot I grabbed from our brand creative team, and they actually have, well, they're always about beautiful things, but they have a place on their shared team board where they put in these kind of like lockers or pull-out file cabinets. Here's a set of resources to the right. And then they have some evergreen assets that they could reference for professional guides or team norms. They have a garden here of things they're trying to grow and develop. I just love those metaphors. It helps me to find the document that I'm looking for. And it's all shared in the same place with the team.
Yep, I love that it's right there at my fingertips. I don't have to go digging for anything. It's available in my space, similar to you might have some of this stuff actually in your team room that we showed you earlier. So all of it, very easy to tackle, get your arms around, understand where things are. To me, this is just so wildly helpful.
And, you know, our poll showed that documentation is not a big issue for people. Working software is not a big issue. But for me, the teams I experience, it's finding the right documentation that's the big problem. So having it here and having it persist can save us time and frustration. Let's talk about value number 3.
Well, Brian, did you want to talk about one of your favorite new features this year?
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're waiting on me. All right, especially if you'll show it. Sure. One of my favorite features, I hope you guys love this, that we've been working on as Agile coaches with a great software development team is something we call visual activities, okay? And so for a long time as a facilitator, I remember creating beautiful facilitated activities on flip charts. And let's see, I see that in your picture, Jessica.
I see it in yours as well.
Okay.
Hopefully
you guys. I don't see it on the main screen though, but maybe that's fine. So Jessica's looking at or sharing with us a live image of a LucidSpark board with a visual activity set. And so where I used to pull out a flip chart and quickly create an activity, now I can have one prepared and share it. And so this visual activity actually is asking folks to sort some cards, right? And so once you click start, or Jessica, you might click, because I know you took the visual activity already, you might click that you want to change your answer and let us go take a look at it. Everybody on your team gets a separate view into the activity. Now, before we took this visual activity, all those cards were there on the left in the kind of rectangle area. And the instructions were, I want you to sort these along an axis pair, right? And help me understand what's most important. And then once you've sorted that, and I did this activity, Jessica did this activity, everybody's doing it individually. And within a few minutes, you can hit submit. And then we could look, congratulations, you know, you've successfully submitted. We can look at the results, right? And now we can see an average across all of the participants on the team, like what do people feel the strongest about? And we could click on an individual, like Jessica, if you wanted to see what my thoughts or your thoughts were, and we could have a conversation, right? So quickly, we've gathered data, and now we can talk about the insights from that data and even look at like, what are the most important things to people? Where should we take action on, et cetera. So you can use a visual activity to do things like gauging the team's energy about something. You could have them do story point estimating. You could have a strategic conversation with your stakeholders and ask them to do something like we've done here. Really, the sky's the limit. You could even do fun things to kick off a retrospective and ask them questions about like, what's your favorite this or that, and get everybody talking before and connecting before we get into a deeper conversation. So for me, this has kind of replaced what I used to do with a flip chart and marker pen as a facilitator. And I love that I have like a whole toolkit of them, just like a set of templates that I can drag out. They're all data backed, and they really save us time and frustration and sometimes even conflict as we're working through making decisions together. I really encourage you to try them. It's the kind of thing you get when you throw, like I mentioned, 2 longtime Agile coaches at a great software development team and you say, hey, build us this.
That's right. That's right. All right. Moving on to value number 3, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So with Agile, we all know that surprisingly, we learn along the way. And we are actually prepared for things to emerge rather than expecting that we set a plan at the moment that we know the absolute least there at the beginning and then try to harness that plan and do all kinds of things to make sure the plan is in place, but we aren't incorporating any of the learnings that we get as we begin to do the work. And so we actually expect that change needs to happen as we learn more and more. So really what that means is we need to collaborate with customers and stakeholders all along the way. there's been a huge world shift in that we're not trying to zing one another for failing to meet some obscure contract term. We're actually trying to support one another to come out with the best outcomes possible. The other part of this is really important, is that as human beings, we are wanting to understand one another, but sometimes language just isn't enough. Literally, we've been trying to use visuals to understand one another since early cave paintings. I mean, like, we've been working on this for a while, folks. Perhaps you've seen that cartoon that Jeff Patton often shares in the I'm glad we're all agreeing because we've had this conversation, but you can see in that upper left-hand corner, each person has their own idea of what it is we're agreeing upon. But when we put things out visually, you can actually see, oh, wait a minute, what you were describing is not what I had in my head. But through this visual collaboration, we can actually, at the very end, come to something that's even more elegant and delightful than if we had each been individually thinking about this on our own. And we're all aligned on, oh, here's where we're headed, this is what we're going to build, all of that really important stuff.
Excuse me. I like to think about how this is one of the big things we solve with that virtual where that we described.
All right. How about some more tips, Brian?
All right. Sorry, I have a little cough. I meant to hit the mute. Well, I think that this might be one of the easier parts of the manifesto to continue to sustain. With the Lucid platform, for example, we can create an incredibly collaborative experience. It can allow us to create transparency and alignment like we've shown. And you can co-create things with your customer right there on a canvas, bring them right into the team's collaborative environment and allow them to see what we're working on. No need to create a separate slide deck or something like that, because with that living blueprint concept, everything's available for them to follow along the way. You can even create a bespoke customer-facing environment like that team that was working with the grocery client, right? So this allows a high amount of customer interaction and feedback, and we can use simple techniques like these powerful visuals to enable us to get a quick turnaround for decision-making right while the group is together. As you showed, we could do a visual activity to get that input. We could do a brainstorming, for example, all good ways to capture feedback. And then you've got it right there on the board with you. So you can use this type of approach to get immediate feedback, increase clarity for the team. And the nature of this kind of collaboration really results in fewer gaps, save time, better understanding, and little need to spar with one another over contract details, which has made life a lot easier for teams that use this type of approach. So these would be my tips.
And kinder, we like it. All right, value number 4, responding to change over following a plan. So let's go back to the before days. Change, as I mentioned, was nearly impossible. Plans would last 9 months, a year, 18 months even. And Brian, didn't you tell me that your first class on project management had a full day on protecting the plan?
Right, protecting the plan.
As we mentioned things about PowerPoint, I still wince when we bring up PowerPoint, because I remember the days when I would have to build and polish and polish and polish a PowerPoint document. So of course, once you've done all of that polish, you don't want to actually go back and change something. That would be, again, polishing again. With Agile, we work in a way that allows for uncertainty and learning. And when we're working on crazy, complex, and interesting problems, this is needed. This is necessary. We have to allow change to emerge. This is so important, and to be able to respond to change, you have to be able to see the change and easily pivot to accommodate. Brian, what are some tips for responding to change over following a plan for this group?
Okay, so when I think about this principle or this value pairing from the manifesto, I think about the Agile principles that support it, like harnessing change for the customer's competitive advantage and how a team should tune and adjust their team behaviors accordingly. And so I want to make sure that we aren't just responding to change. I want us to harness change. I want to make a competitive advantage for a team. I want us to embrace change it can be really amazing if we look at things that way. And we've talked about the power of visuals already and how they allow for better alignment on meaning, how they create clarity around our change target, our goals. And this concept of a living blueprint can really ensure that our team's history, our shared journey, that it's all there, and it can serve as documentation as we need without lots of extra effort. Now, this really drives the effort and the cost of change down because we can create and confirm these changes along the way. And so it can be really easy to communicate in this way using the power of visuals. We can communicate about the change. We can even do so outside the organization by publishing links, by extracting a PDF from our diagram. We can embed these things in a wiki, etc. And so as we do make changes in our shared whiteboard space or in our shared documentation, diagrams, right? The magic of our technology through these embedded links ensures that everything gets updated in the places where we publish them. And so I think that we can respond to change and pivot quickly using something like Lucid's collaboration suite rather than having to polish and polish documentation like you and I remember from Google Docs, from PowerPoints, etc. I mean, all these years we spent in consulting, you know, that was like the #1 tool is like, get that deck ready. But I feel like Lucid is setting a course for a shift really in the team collaboration suite of the future. I think that the days of office environments and things like that with static documents will change or is changing. And I think we're charting the way forward.
Very exciting.
Great for our teams. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, as we can see, we can still support and amplify the Agile values in today's modern workforce. We can use our creativity to still have a collective space to meet each other and to collaborate.
And, you know, by using a collaborative tool set like we're discussing, we can eliminate the need for huge documents and all of that effort, but rather we can use the documentation we're creating along the way while we're collaborating to establish that living blueprint of exactly what we've done together. And that can be really powerful, but simple.
We continue to focus on co-creation and collaboration with our customers.
And we continue this lightweight but frequent planning that allows us to continuously learn and adjust as those learnings emerge.
That's right. We have links to a really cool campaign that we're doing called Agile Quest. I am mildly obsessed with it. Check out that page to see more of our teams, resources around Agile. I love the wizard. It's and the bard, just a delight. There's more characters, so go check those out. And we also have a page where you can learn more about how Lucid supports Agile teams. We hope you enjoy them both.
All right, we are ready, Molly. Bring on those questions.
All right. Thank you guys so much for all of that. We've seen a lot of activity in the chat and in the Q&A. So first question, how do we choose or find the right customers to bring in for feedback?
Well, I can tell you stories about what we're doing. In our case, we have forums with customers that, for example, we have an Agile forum that helps us to establish customers that use our product and can advise us in particular areas. And so we oftentimes meet with them and get feedback. And through one of our mechanisms, we actually, our UX team members, our QA team members, our product owners, they all can pull together a group of customers and ask questions with them. So participating in this way, they'll put together, let's say, a Lucid board, share it, and seek feedback directly with customers. And so that's one way that we use every week to get customer feedback. Of course, Sprint tells us we can have a sprint review and we can invite stakeholders that can represent our customers. We can bring in a product owner in that regard. But sometimes you want to work directly with users to get that feedback and let them experiment with the product before it goes out. You can tune and finalize things to make sure it lands well.
Yeah, I agree. People who are customers who are excited and passionate and really are hopeful that their voice can be heard, and they are excited to help you to build the product in a way that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a question that I think really follows up nicely is, if we engage the customer into our collaborative environment, there is a risk that they micromanage the team. How do we avoid this?
Great thought. Yeah. Well, one thing I know that we talk about a lot is that there is a what and there is a how, right? And so who's responsible to help us determine the what? You know, our product owner helps us to determine that. Our customer can have their voice heard by the product owner. But the how is all about determination by the team, which I know you're a huge advocate for, Jessica.
I am, yes. And I think the other thing is, if there's continued issues, we have this amazing thing that we can do collectively called a working agreement. How are we going to work together? Where do we need your support? Where do you need support from us? You can actually have those conversations before you even begin collaborating together. So I definitely would recommend putting a working agreement in place so that everybody's aware of how we're going to work together.
You know, and I think your, my, and every Agile coach's favorite question is, let's ask the team. And so we should employ that frequently. And it might take a bit of strong facilitation, but we're there to collect guidance and information, not to have somebody micromanage us when we engage with customers for certain. Great question.
Great. As a product owner, how do I avoid injections in the middle of the sprint from the customer or the business stakeholders?
Great question, because, and I am guilty of this because I am a customer and I am a stakeholder and I want all of the neat things right now that I just thought of. So I know I'm guilty of this as a stakeholder to some of the features that we build. But what our product owners do really, really well is a couple of things. One, they've got a sprint goal. And when they are able to articulate that sprint goal, I know where the team is headed. And does my brand new shiny idea that I really, really want align to that sprint goal? Probably not. And so that's really helpful for me to say, oh, that's right. You're off doing important things right now. I'm going to let you be. The other thing that our product owners do a really great job of is saying, okay, here's our product backlog. Here's our sprint backlog. Here's what the team's working on right now. Here's why it's important. And then here's our product backlog. And here's the next thing we're going to go work on. We think that we can fit it in here. Does the value of what you're asking for align with what I'm seeing? And then I can go, okay, well, that's actually really important too. That's really important too. Okay, I really want my thing, but actually you're right, it does fit down here. So thank you for explaining. But they're just very transparent, very clear, and they think through the value of the work that the team is doing and how to prioritize or manage that backlog in that way.
Yeah, I think to Ollie's question, I think if anything, you start with education, like Jessica suggested, is somebody may not understand that, hey, there's a containment field around the sprint backlog. We aren't able to change things. That's not how Scrum works. And as we educate people, we understand, okay, you have an opportunity to influence the product backlog, but not the sprint backlog. Good question.
Great. So this one is a little more open-ended. Can you discuss an ethical dilemma you faced and how you've handled it? I wonder if we can follow up with them, get a little more context if they're talking with them, like working with stakeholders, things like that. But
yeah, a little more context might be helpful.
Okay. All right. So while we're waiting for context on that, how do we manage the minimum to maximum of collaboration? Can we talk about collaboration variability according to project variability?
I'm still searching for that question. So I'm interpreting, of course, the question. If you want to put more context in there, that would be great. But is there a project where we do need more collaboration or we need less collaboration? I think about, let's say we're doing a project or something for our internal users. Maybe it's an internal IT infrastructure project. And I've worked directly with our IO on projects like that. Who was our chief stakeholder? The CIO. Who wanted to be our product owner? The CIO, but we talked him out of it, right? And so there was the need for input from a couple of individuals, but not like in the case of Lucid, where we're talking getting data from thousands of users in order to help us shape the product. And so the type of collaboration can shift, right? Because we're really focusing on the input necessary for the type of thing that we're working on. Hopefully that is the kind of answer that you're looking for. You may not need all of that input and collaboration in every case. Did you have a different take, Jessica?
No, I think it's really helpful to consider why people are in the room. I know I worked with an organization that had some of the most FOMO about working together that I'd ever seen in my life. Like every meeting had a gazillion people in it because everything would be forwarded. And even these collaborative meetings where we're supposed to be working on something, it was like everybody needed their fingers in something. And so when we took a step back and said, okay, so let's be intentional about who we're inviting into these collaboration sessions and articulate that. So here's who we need and here's why we need each one of you in the room. That gives you some containment for the work that's being done rather than having like, okay, we started here and then now all of a sudden we've got, how many cooks are in the kitchen? This is insane. I don't know if any of you play Overcooked, but having that many people in the same big game is very, very difficult. So really who needs to be in the room and why to work on these things, I think is really valuable. But thinking through it and being intentional about it, I would say.
All right. Sorry, I'm just organizing a little bit. If a company gets a new project, is it mandatory to involve Scrum Masters in the entry level, or should we leave it to business analysts or with the product owner?
I think it's helpful anytime that you've got a new team to have someone there to help guide the team's maturity, whether that's an Agile maturity or teamwork maturity. I think it's important to have someone who's paying attention to the Agile values and principles and making sure that we're in alignment, but also paying attention to the relationship system that's also in place. How is this team working together and how can we help to improve? I mean, it's like tossing people into, I'm going to date myself, but remember Real World on MTV? Like at first everybody's nice and then things get real. It can be helpful to have someone in there paying attention to the relationship system as well as the system. So there's all kinds of things that a Scrum Master does that's not really in the accountabilities of, say, a product owner, right? Product owner is paying attention to what is my backlog and what's the value of the work that we're doing. And so why are we doing these things? They are not paying attention to those two just got in a pretty heated argument. We should probably have a conversation about that before they sweep it under the rug. So I think it's really valuable to have a Scrum Master in the room. So.
All right. In Scrum, we value both individuals and interactions over processes and tools. How does the Scrum Master strike the right balance between those two, especially when time pressures arise?
That's a great question. I don't know that we always, as Scrum Masters, have a really clear answer on that. We try, and we look for feedback from the team as we have retrospectives. But Jessica and I are both firm believers that if we invest in the individuals and their interactions, we call it connection before content. As facilitators, we want to connect before we dive into the content. That it makes a lot of the processes and tools work that a team does better. And so we do invest a lot of time in helping build a team, a true team of collaborators who enjoy working together, who can talk about the messy bits rather than sweep it under the rug, because we feel like it accelerates the delivery work that comes later, and we enjoy being together as a team. So our bias is to build a healthy team.
Yeah, when we're in relationship, the work that we do is so much better. I'll give you a personal example if it helps. I was working with a group, and somebody was off working on something else, and they came to me and said, do you have anything? I'm trying to figure this problem out. Do you have anything for it? And I was like, actually, I don't, but let me think about it. So I went and thought about it for a little bit, and I came up with this absolutely wacky harebrained idea that sounded ridiculous in my head. But I was in deep relationship with the person who'd asked me to think about it. And so I could come to them with this zany, weird idea. And I told them my idea, and they looked at me, kind of laughed, and said, "That is absolutely ridiculous. Let's play with it." And so together we collectively like chewed on this, like played with this dough that I brought them and added different ingredients and then went in and kind of baked it up and then served it up to the team. But if I hadn't been in relationship with this person, I would have played with it on my own, been in a silo, not gotten the diversity of thought and all kinds of things that come from really good collaboration. And I would have put it in the oven and I would have baked it. And by the time I brought him this idea, it would have been a fully baked bread. And it wouldn't have been any good, quite frankly. It would have been a weird, nobody wants whatever bread it is that I was baking originally. But because we were able to come together, our sourdough turned out great, and it actually worked amazingly. So again, it's like that building of the relationship allows for these weird, zany ideas to be brought forth and worked on together, which is really important when we're solving the really complicated and interesting problems that we're solving in today's world. We need each other. We need that collaboration. And for me, I need to be in a relationship to do that.
All right, Brian, we have a question directed specifically towards you. Product owners can also be manager and delivery manager. Does it have an effect if one person is involved or responsible for multiple roles?
Sure, you could. So I'm hearing they could be a delivery manager, or they could be a lot of different things, product owner. I hear delivery manager and I think like of a functional role. Maybe a middle level manager who is responsible for maybe the developers or the development team. So we do think that there's a conflict of interest when you've got multiple roles going on. Like we would probably say a scrum master and a product owner, of course, are two people that have a very different goal, right? One might be more, push it out, get it out, all that I can get done. The product owner, I want it for free and I want it now. And and the scrum master would be saying, hey, hold on, we should build this well, we should build this right, we need to think about the team. And so it can be a difficult thing to be both a product owner and somebody who's trying to get more support and respect for the team. So I just would be careful to watch for that. I have seen it work well in some situations because of the nature of the environment and the nature of the leaders involved, and I've seen it work poorly. So I would use your wisdom. Thank you for the question.
So for a hybrid product team in an environment that has waterfall IT management with a set deadline under fiscal constraints, which presents challenges, what can the Scrum Master do to align the Agile way of product development and delivery with waterfall management?
I wish I could see that question. Is it the one at the top?
It's in the answer live section of the Q&A.
Okay. Did it start for hybrid product team in an environment of waterfall IT? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. Let me read it real quick. I guess what I'm interpreting from this one, Jessica, for a hybrid product team in an environment that waterfall IT management with a set deadline under fiscal constraints, that doesn't sound like an Agile context at all, right? So we've got a traditional project environment, a waterfall environment, what the Scrum Master can do to align to the Agile way of product development and delivery with the waterfall management. Okay, so I think, sorry, it took me a minute. This takes me back to when I first started with Scrum, and the thing that I had to do was to, well, in some cases I asked for an experiment. Let's experiment with Scrum and do it differently. Okay, I want to carve out just this one waterfall project, and I want to do it in a Scrum way. Can I get your approval to do an experiment? And I think hundreds and hundreds of Scrum transformations in organizations have been launched by that. Can we do an experiment? In our first experiment, we showed great results. We delivered before the customer expected it. And a bunch of other teams said, how did you do that? And the product owner said, well, I have this Scrum team. It's a new thing that we're doing. And then a lot of people came to me, I was the coach, and they said, can I have one of those Scrum teams? Right? This would have been 2003. So that's always a thing you can do, is to try and experiment. Usually our managers are like, okay, it's an experiment. I know, Jessica, in your case, you complained and moaned and groaned and asked until they said, fine, we'll let you have a team to experiment. Am I right?
I like to say that I was persistent rather than annoying and stubborn, that I really, really, really wanted to try this thing because it felt like, well, it just felt more humane to be doing things in an agile way than we were doing it before. I think the other thing that, to answer the question, it does require a lot of courage. I think anytime you're not in an agile environment and you are the one that is there to make this really monumental shift, really in management theory, is it's going to take some courage, because it takes courage to be transparent and to help show, like, things are not all fluffy, green on a project plan. In reality, let's actually talk about what's going on. So I think my biggest tip is courage, my friend, and know that it's not easy.
All right, I think we're nearing the end of our time, so I'll throw out one more question. And Jessica, this one is directed at you, so we'll kind of balance this out. If a planned sprint is not done due to a team issue, how can you cover that or resolve that in a professional way?
Oh, retrospectives. Love retrospectives. The team knows what they did. They just need the chance to talk about it and to be really, really honest with themselves about what happened. And as a Scrum Master, I can facilitate that. And sometimes things happen too, right? Like, that's why we have retrospectives. Did something happen? Something came in that really was unavoidable, and so we didn't. Our best guess about what we could do. New information showed up. I think the important thing is, well, besides retrospective, it's also really important to have very honest conversations with ourselves every day. So in our daily planning meeting, let's be honest about what's going on. Something came in, it has really disrupted what we've got going on. Let's be transparent early to go talk to our product owner or any stakeholders who may be expecting things, so that it doesn't come as a surprise at the very end. So it's the courage to truly look in the mirror during a retrospective and to be honest with ourselves and with our partners, to talk about things early and often. And yeah, I think that's, and the other thing is, I fully believe that everyone is doing the best that they can with what they have. And so if we come at it from that lens, we can make better decisions about what to do in the future. I think it's silly to think that somebody came in and messed up the sprint intentionally, but rather let's just be aware of what happened and have healthy conversations about what to do moving forward.
Amazing. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. We still have a few questions left, but I will work with Brian and Jessica afterwards to see if we can get some of those answered. So first of all, a huge thank you to Brian and Jessica for an amazing webinar today. I've been working remote for 4 years now, and I still feel like I have so much to learn in terms of remote collaboration and working with the team remotely, and it's always great to get a refresher and to learn more. So thank you so much for an incredible webinar today. And thank you so much to everybody who has joined us from across the globe. I mean, this is truly a global webinar. We've seen people, I think, from almost every continent. It's incredible to connect with you, hear your questions, see what you have to say in the chat. So thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder, you will receive a link tomorrow in your email with a link to our on-demand recording of this webinar. You'll be able to access the entire console that you're seeing right now, and as well as the entire recording. And I will make sure, we had some issues accessing the slide deck and the Lucid Spark board. I'll double check those links to make sure they are working correctly. And for any Scrum Alliance member, we will also send you a link to auto-claim your Scrum education unit for attending this webinar. That counts towards your certification and membership renewal. So again, thank you everybody so much, and we hope you join us for our next webinar. And wait, I forgot one more thing. If you want to learn more about Lucid Spark, there is a CTA on your console that will connect you to their website with some incredible resources. I'm going to highlight that for you so you can see it. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Molly. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, everybody.